Good evening, fellow wargamers, and welcome to another episode of Stuff I Make with Grand Inquisitor Chris. Now, as you guys will recall, last episode I talked about adding statuary to your games, and I talked about some of the things you could do, like the Games Workshop or religious statues, using Christmas ornaments, the statues from the hobby store in the dollhouse section. Talked about ideas of where you could get statues. In this episode, we're going to talk about pedestals and using some ratios to make sure that you get the best looking finished project that you can. Now, I've seen some people use these juice containers as pedestals for statues, and it's okay if you're broke and you just are looking for something to do on the cheap and just want to get the job done, so to say, as Larry the Cable Guy puts it, get her done. But if you're wanting to do something that stands out more, and if you're looking to give a more polished look to your pieces, this doesn't really do it very well, because the issue that I have with adding figures is a lot of times people will just add a figure to a base and call that a statue. And the problem is that figures are not intended to be statues. They're intended to be dynamic. They're intended to be in action. Even the older ones, even the more flat ones from beginning sculptors, are intended to be an action pose. Like this one, this is an old Hero Quest piece. He's supposed to have wings, but he's intended to be there standing out like he's getting ready to attack. And the problem with adding this as a statue is, ideally as a statue you want it to be at least half the width of the base. And by half the width I mean the body trunk itself for the space it holds. So from the feet up, you want this width from the feet up, including the torso, roughly to be half the width of that. Now, that's fine, the body is, but the problem is that the arms are so far out that they make the statue inordinately wide. So that would be fine, except that when you look at the statue from the top, the statue is actually less than a third this way, so that when you look at the statue from the side, you've got this huge base on it, and you lose the statue in the base. Putting something like this on a tabletop, the statue's not going to stand out, and really you want everything on your tabletop to really add some pop, some appeal to things. So ideally you want, like I said, you want the statue to be at least half the width of the podium. It can be more than that, but you want it to be at least half the width. So for something like this, if it was taller, this would be a little bit too big, but it would be closer to what you're looking for. But for a statue like this, you'd want this podium to be taller. Possibly something like that. But even then, you'd want to get rid of this square base, because that way it doesn't clash with the top of it. Now, say you're doing something where you want to add statuary to a town square. You want to add something like a nice water fountain. That's a great place to have statuary. So this was a fountain that I bought from Horizontal Creations 3D. I went ahead and popped this out intentionally so that I could add a statue in here. And my original idea was to take something like this and add it in as a base for the statue, maybe put some extra stuff on it. But then I started looking at it, and then it's like, then the statue has to become so overly large to account for this that I just wasn't liking it, until I came up with this idea. I'm going to take this little podium, put the statue on top, and then put the statue in the middle of the fountain. And then I end up with what will be a nice, fairly good centerpiece. I'm going to go ahead and decorate it up. This will be one of the projects I show you later. Now, the way you get one of these, this is actually fluted, it's hollow plastic. The way I got this was, I'm sure most of you are aware of this. These are the plastic cake pillars you get at Michael's or Hobby Lobby or someplace like that for increasing the size of your wedding cakes and stuff. What most of you probably are not aware of is that it also comes in this 4th size. So this one we'll talk about later. in another project. But what I did was I went ahead and cut the pillar off here and here, so that I ended up with some of these. This is the bottom and this is the top. And doing that, you end up with these. So this, like I said, I'll use that in that fountain. When you have these, if you're doing something small, like, we'll just take this one. If you want to add something like this to a church, or have a bunch of them around a church just for added decoration that you can move around, if you don't want to glue them down to your church, you can just make a bunch of these and put them wherever you need to when you need to. I took a black slot base, one of the ones that doesn't actually have a slot in it, from Games Workshop, glued it to the top of this to cover the hole, and now I have a perfect statue base for it. It fulfills the requirements that she's at least half the width this way and this way. She fits on it nicely. She's got a rounded base on her own, although I might sand that down or take it down if I was going to use this for this particular piece. But this allows you to add smaller statues to the insides of churches and such. Or if you wanted to have, like for Warhammer 40k, if you wanted a Hall of Space Marine heroes, you could add Space Marine in power armor on these. Now this is a nice one, but let's say you wanted to do something a little fancier than this. If you take two of these and you glue them like this, and take and put a piece of plastic card on top, you end up with one of these. And you can do it with the tops or the bottoms. You don't really want to do the tops to the bottoms, because this hole and this one are different sizes, and this one is dangerously close to falling into that one. So it creates a weak spot, so unless you're going to fill it with something like liquid nail or putty or something to reinforce that joint there, you really want to just do either tops to tops or bottoms to bottoms. But you end up with them, like I said, you just glue them together like that, put a piece of square plastic card on the top, and now you have a bigger podium. And the bigger the podium, the more that you want to add an impressive piece to it. So this isn't a very impressive statue, this particular one. She's not very impressive because she just doesn't have the height and the volume to fill it out. But you can add something else onto it. Now say you wanted to do something like this for a larger statue like these. That's what I'm going to be doing with this, is I'm going to be adding it for a larger statue. But say you wanted a smaller podium for a larger statue like these, what you can do is, if you get 4 of these, glue them together so that you now have 4 of them together. And there you have a reasonably good sized space. You can see from the top down that it fulfills the requirements for the ratio. And here you can see that it really does add a nice bit of height to the statue itself. So it will give you the added height that you want. It'll give you a fancier base with very little effort. All it took was 4 of these pillars and a little bit of plastic card on the top to fill it in the tops. You can do the same things with these bottoms if you wanted. The bottoms are slightly more squat than the tops, just by the very nature of the columns. They don't have the round scroll work, so you can vary your column height just depending on which size you wanted to use. Another option that you can do with this is if you want to make your own chess set. These would be perfect for use as the pawns bases. Use the ones with the scroll work as your knights and castles and bishops, and do your king and queen on the ones that are double stacked. Just a thought, outside the box. This particular one, this scroll work one would work well for this, because it would give you the nice decorated look that you would expect to see in something religious. But it doesn't really work for something like this Warhammer 40k piece, because it's just a little too fancy. Even if I cut off this base to make it fit better, It's just a little too fancy, doesn't really fit the whole stoic image that you're trying to portray. It also doesn't fit in with all the cracked work that they've put into the base and the design. So what I did was, if you go back and watch my video of first try, one of the first videos I made, I cut 4 pieces of PVC foam board into a square and glued it together to make it 1 inch thick. I then went ahead and cut the edging on it to give it a cracked appearance. Now you'll see that it's glued to a piece of plastic card. That's because I wanted to use this to make a mold so that I can make multiples of them. Since, for instance, I have 2 of these statues. And what I ended up with is this. So it gives me a nice sized base. You can see from the top down that it's got a little edge around the edging of it. The cracked edging here goes nicely with the cracked edging on the statue. And it gives me that nice height that I was looking for, because as I said in the previous video, the statue is just not really high enough without another podium added to it. And this gives something nice and easy that you can just slap on the bottom of it. For some of these, I'm looking, possibly because I have so many statues, at doing one that's more rubbleized. So I have this one that I did in 4 pieces. The main piece for the base, and these 3 pieces that can be put around it with some more rubble around them. And just add in a statue there. It doesn't quite fulfill the ratios that I was talking about of being at least 1/3 as wide, but if you add in the rubble around it, it gives it a nicer effect, and it helps add to that visual damaged look. And some of these things, adding some nice little added tech benefits to your stuff. If you got some of these Christmas ornaments that are the cherubs, these make a nice little base for that, and it gives you something that you can put around the board just to give you just the added little eye appeal. I'm probably going to make these into cyber cherubs for Warhammer 40k look, and put them on the board for a religious world, for the ecclesiarchy. But this is what I wanted to talk to you guys about, was just adding some podium ideas and stuff to your pieces. I'll have a link to the Horizontal Creations 3D website in the description of the video. I'll have a link to Blackmagic Craft as well, so you can see what they did with the Wicked Witch figurine. In some of my upcoming videos, I'll be doing actual projects with these pieces, so you'll see what I actually ended up doing with these, and I'll explain real easily how I put it together. It won't be anything terribly complicated. It's just going to be ways to really put something out there that actually makes these into something more imposing than just, wow, I have a oversized plastic figure on the table. I will talk to you guys later. If you like the video, please leave me comments. If you don't like the video, please tell me what I did wrong, because I'm always looking to get better at this, and this is an ongoing project for me. So like I said, let me know if you like it or don't like it. Let me know why you don't like it or like it. And if you do like it, please like and share and subscribe. Talk to you guys later. Bye.